December 1941. The Pacific was a theater of shadows, where the ocean's surface hid more than waves, it hid hunters that had become the hunted. Japanese submarines, once feared prowlers of the deep, glided silently through the vast expanse of blue, confident in their invisibility. They had struck fear into Allied shipping, sinking transports and warships with torpedoes that disappeared like phantoms in the dark. But by 1943, the rules of the ocean had changed. The United States had unleashed a weapon so revolutionary, so unrelenting, that the hunters themselves would find themselves exposed. It was called sonar. And for the first time in naval history, the ocean no longer belonged to the silent killers. The hunter had become the prey. Across the Pacific, Japanese commanders laughed at reports of American experiments. No device could pierce the dark waters. They scoffed. Yet beneath the waves, the Navy was quietly rewriting the rules of submarine warfare, turning the tide of the war, one pulse, one echo, one ship at a time. By the time the submariners realized the truth, the ocean had become a graveyard of steel. This is the story of how sonar transformed the war at sea, how a single innovation turned unstoppable predators into terrified prey, and how the Japanese Navy discovered, far too late, that silence was no longer safety. Before sonar, the Pacific Ocean was a domain dominated by fear. Japanese submarines prowled like sharks, sleek gray silhouettes cutting through the waves, stalking Allied convoys across thousands of miles. Their commanders had honed their craft through years of meticulous training and a culture that celebrated stealth, precision, and ruthlessness. Each torpedo fired was a calculated strike. Each patrol a deadly chess move across the vast ocean board. The Americans called them silent killers. And the early months of the war confirmed the reputation. Supply lines from America to Australia and the Philippines were constant targets. Cargo ships laden with troops, fuel, and ammunition vanished without a trace. Even warships were not safe. Escorts tried to defend convoys, but the Japanese submarines were trained to anticipate every maneuver, striking from the depths and slipping away before retaliation could arrive. But beneath the confidence of the Japanese captains, cracks were beginning to form. The U.S. Navy had suffered staggering losses, yes, but the industrial and scientific machine of America was turning quietly, far from the front lines. Engineers in Norfolk, Pearl Harbor, and San Diego were tinkering with new devices, sonar systems that could detect submarines by sound waves echoing off their steel hulls. To the Japanese, these were curiosities, experiments that could never match the instinct and experience of seasoned submariners. At first, sonar was crude. Early ASDIC sets borrowed from British technology could detect submarines at short ranges under ideal conditions. The ocean was unpredictable. Temperature layers bent, sound waves, currents distorted echoes, and marine life created false blips on the instruments. Yet, the potential was undeniable. Officers in the Pacific saw the promise of an invisible eye beneath the waves, one that could pierce the darkness and expose what had once been untouchable. American sailors trained tirelessly with these new systems. Crews learned to distinguish the faint hum of a diesel engine from the chatter of the deep. They calculated angles, distances, and speeds, practicing relentlessly on training submarines. Every pulse of sound sent into the water was a potential revelation, a way to find the unseen, to strike before the enemy could strike. Meanwhile, Japanese commanders continued their campaigns with the same old confidence. Submarines stalked the Solomon Islands, the Marshalls, and the waters around New Guinea. Supply ships vanished. Patrol boats were dispatched, often too late to intercept the prowling hunters. Japanese officers relished reports of sunken transports, counting the toll like trophies. They believed the ocean was theirs, a silent battlefield where their rules reigned supreme. Yet the Americans were not waiting to be caught in the shadows. They were learning, innovating, and turning the hunters into the hunted. By late 1943, U.S. Sonar technology had improved to a point where trained operators could detect even stealthy submarines before they could attack. The stage was set for a confrontation that would change naval warfare forever. A clash where sound, strategy, and stealth would decide who dominated the vast, unforgiving Pacific. By early 1944, the U.S. Navy had transformed sonar from an experimental novelty into a lethal instrument of war. On the surface, warships still looked ordinary, sleek hulls cutting through the Pacific like any other. But beneath the decks, sonar operators sat in dimly lit compartments, ears straining over headphones, eyes fixed on oscilloscopes that traced invisible echoes in real time. Every pulse of sound they emitted into the ocean carried a promise: to find the enemy before he found them. Japanese submarines, unaware of the revolution unfolding, continued their patrols with the same confidence that had brought them early victories. They surfaced under cover of night, recharging batteries and communicating with command posts across thousands of miles. Diesel engines rumbled beneath their steel skin, oblivious to the listening devices that would soon turn every engine noise into a beacon of doom. The first encounters were subtle but deadly. A lone American destroyer would detect the faint hum of a Japanese sub several thousand yards away. Maneuvering carefully, the ship would close in, using sonar readings to estimate range, bearing, and speed. The submarine, trained for evasion and attack, had no idea it had been seen. The depth charges dropped seconds later were calculated to explode precisely where the sonar indicated the hull lay. 1, 2, 3 charges would erupt in succession, sending columns of water and steel fragments into the air, leaving the hunter stunned, battered, and, more often than not, destroyed. Word began to spread in Japanese naval circles. Reports filtered back from patrols. Missing submarines, unexplained attacks, convoys seemingly defended by unseen enemies. Initially, commanders dismissed these accounts as flukes, coincidences, or pilot error. But as losses mounted, boats disappearing without a trace, seasoned crews gone, the unnerving truth emerged. The hunter had become the hunted. In the Pacific, the psychological impact was profound. Submarine crews had once been the masters of stealth and surprise. They had prowled in darkness, confident in their invisibility. Now, the ocean felt different. Every echo, every ripple in the water could signal death. Japanese submariners learned to move silently, to avoid surfacing when they could, to dive deeper, and yet even then, sonar operators on American ships seemed to anticipate their every move. The silent killers of yesterday were now fighting for survival in a game they didn't understand. Meanwhile, U.S. naval strategy evolved to exploit sonar to its fullest. Convoys were reinforced with destroyers, corvettes, and frigates, each outfitted with the latest sonar equipment. Aircraft equipped with sonar buoys patrolled overhead, listening for the faintest sign of submarine activity. The Americans combined intelligence, industrial might, and technological innovation to create a vast, almost invisible web across the Pacific, an unseen net that no submarine could penetrate without risk. The turning point came in March 1944, near the waters of the Marshall Islands. A Japanese Type B-1 submarine, the I-175, had been on patrol for weeks, hunting supply convoys and Allied warships. The crew, confident and experienced, saw no reason to fear the ocean that had long been their domain. But unbeknownst to them, the U.S. Navy had begun deploying hunter-killer groups specifically designed to seek out and destroy submarines. The I-175 surfaced at night, charging its batteries. Its diesel engines echoed faintly across the water. Across the channel, sonar operators aboard the destroyer USS Wadsworth detected a pulsing signature, a faint but unmistakable hum that marked the sub's presence. The operators exchanged glances. This was no ghost. This was a target. The destroyer altered course, keeping a careful distance, while sonar readings painted a precise picture of the submarine's depth and speed. Officers calculated attack angles, predicting where the sub would be moments before the next sonar ping. Seconds became an eternity as the destroyer closed in, engines muted, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Then came the depth charge attack. Explosions rocked the ocean, sending water surging into the night sky. Below the surface, the submarine shuddered violently. Hull plates buckled, machinery flooded, and crewmen scrambled in the dimly lit compartments. The I-175, once a hunter capable of sending convoys to the bottom of the ocean, now became a desperate prey. Attempts to evade the depth charges only confirmed the destroyer's calculations, guiding the next series of blasts with terrifying accuracy. Within minutes, the submarine had been critically damaged. Reports from Japanese command later indicated that not a single crew member survived. The loss stunned their naval hierarchy. Experienced submariners, trained in evasion, stealth, and strategy, had fallen victim to a technology they had dismissed as inconsequential. The hunter-killer groups had proven that sonar was not just a tool. It was a weapon capable of rewriting the rules of naval warfare. Word of the incident rippled through the Pacific. Japanese submarine commanders, once confident in their supremacy, now understood the ocean had changed. Every patrol, every dive, carried the possibility of instant detection and destruction. The psychological toll was immense. Submarine warfare, once defined by stealth and fear, had become a high-stakes game where the first mistake meant death. The Americans, however, had learned an even more important lesson. Technology alone was not enough. Sonar required skill, training, and coordination. Every operator, every ship, every patrol had to function as part of a cohesive network. Alone, a sonar ping might find nothing. But combined with strategy, intelligence, and relentless practice, it created a system that could hunt the ocean itself. The silent hunters of the Japanese Navy were no match for the integrated, industrial, and tactical might of the United States. By mid-1944, the U.S. Navy had perfected the art of anti-submarine warfare. Hunter-killer groups prowled the Pacific like packs of wolves, each destroyer, frigate, and escort carrier synchronized to find the unseen enemy. Every sonar pulse sent ripples across the ocean, each ping a calculated probe into the depths where Japanese submarines once thought themselves safe. In June, off the coast of the Marianas, a Japanese Type C submarine, I-176, received orders to disrupt Allied supply lines. The captain, confident in years of experience, pushed the vessel to maximum speed under cover of night. But as the sub hummed through the water, the USS Wainwright, part of a hunter-killer group, detected it instantly. Sonar operators meticulously tracked its movements, anticipating every dive, every evasive maneuver. The attack was precise, almost surgical. Depth charges exploded around the submarine in carefully timed patterns, shaking the steel hull and sending panic through the crew. Alarm bells rang, compartments flooded, and machinery groaned under pressure. In a desperate attempt to escape, the I-176 tried to descend to 400 feet, but the hunter-killer group anticipated this move. Secondary depth charges rained down, each detonation echoing through the water like hammers striking iron. The submarine's fate was sealed. Within minutes, it was disabled, and the crew had no choice but to surface. For the first time, the hunter had become prey. As Japanese Naval Command received reports of the loss, disbelief turned to fear. Experienced submariners, once masters of stealth and terror, were now helpless in the face of a technology they had ignored, underestimated, and dismissed. This shift in the balance of naval power was more than tactical, it was psychological. Japanese crews who had once attacked Allied convoys with impunity now moved cautiously, never surfacing without calculating risk, never trusting the night. The ocean itself had become a trap, each sonar ping a reminder that they were no longer hunters, but hunted. The Americans, meanwhile, refined their strategies. Aircraft equipped with sonar buoys scoured the seas from above, relaying real-time data to ships below. Convoys moved in coordinated formations, shielded by a network of destroyers and frigates, each ready to strike at the faintest signal. Even the ocean currents seemed to work in favor of the U.S. Navy, carrying sound waves that amplified the reach of sonar. The Japanese submarine force, once feared across the Pacific, was systematically neutralized. By late 1944, the dominance of sonar-equipped hunter-killer groups had fundamentally altered the Pacific War. Japanese submarines, which had once threatened entire fleets, now faced near-certain destruction if detected. Losses mounted at an alarming rate, and morale sank. Experienced crews vanished, replaced by hastily trained replacements who understood little about the deadly technology they now faced. The technological advantage of sonar went beyond sinking individual submarines. It reshaped Allied naval strategy. Supply lines moved with unprecedented security. Troop reinforcements and materiel reached Pacific islands without the fear of unseen predators beneath the waves. Operations such as the Mariana and Palau campaigns were executed with efficiency that would have been impossible without this underwater surveillance. For the Japanese Navy, the implications were catastrophic. Every submarine patrol became a high-stakes gamble, and the very doctrine of undersea warfare was challenged. Commanders began restricting submarine activity, limiting attacks to safer zones, and abandoning strategies that had once brought early victories. The psychological toll was immense. The once dominant hunter force now approached each mission with dread, aware that any misstep could mean instant death. Meanwhile, American sailors gained confidence. Sonar operators, trained extensively in the detection and tracking of submarines, became experts in a field that had scarcely existed at the war's outset. The synergy between technology, tactics, and human skill created an environment where U.S. naval forces could operate with near impunity. The hunter had truly become the master of the seas. By the war's end, the Pacific had been transformed. Japanese submarine losses were catastrophic. Scores of vessels destroyed, crews decimated, and morale shattered. The once feared predators of the deep were rendered largely impotent. The secret weapon of sonar had not only safeguarded Allied fleets but had redefined naval warfare forever, proving that the ocean's depths could no longer hide anyone from the relentless eyes and ears of modern technology. As historians later noted, sonar did more than kill submarines, it changed the very psychology of warfare beneath the waves. Japanese sailors had once prowled the Pacific with confidence and cunning. By 1945, that confidence was replaced with fear, caution, and an understanding that the hunter could now be hunted. And it was this quiet, invisible dominance that helped pave the way for the Allied victory in the Pacific, one sonar ping at a time.